Hi Guava Bees, and welcome to another episode of the Dear Guava Bean podcast. Remember, submit your questions in the sandbox or on the website, and we could be answering yours in the next episode. I'm Francesca, and with me is Claire.
Hello.
And today's question is from Ashley, who asks, I'm curious, do I need to have my own website for my freelancing business? If so, which platform should I use? And if not, why not? I love this question, and websites are like sort of a love-hate for me because it's something that I've experimented with and, you know, not had one and kind of all throughout my freelancing career. I do have a website and I'm working on my website as we speak. As we're recording this, I'm making changes. But that's not always been the case. I went for years without a website and found clients just fine. This was more when I was using like freelancing platforms. So I used that as my website, if that makes sense. What about you, Claire? I don't think you use a website, do you?
No, I've gone back and forth. Like, I've actually created a little mini website a few times. I think I did it once when I was first getting started, like in my first year, and then I've done it again kind of recently. But both times I never really published it. Like, I bought the domain name, I designed the website, I filled it all out, and then I just didn't launch.
What made you like decide to not do it? Was it like something in particular that's just stopping you from doing it?
No, it was just kind of an insurance policy for me. Like, I wanted to have a website because I thought that I needed a website. And so I created it. But then once I created it, I was like, I don't really need this. Like, what am I going to do with it? I prefer to send people to my LinkedIn page. And I had an About Me page, you know, that about.me. You can create like super simple pages that pretty much give the client all the information they need. And so because like my LinkedIn was all filled out and everything, I was like, I don't really want to send people to my website. Maybe I just didn't feel confident enough in the website itself. But yeah, I also never really needed it. Like, I think if I super needed the clients, I would probably have launched it. But by the time I was actually creating it, like, I was already doing okay. And so I was more just creating it because I thought I needed to have it and it would look good.
Yeah, I get you. On the looking good bit, like, that's kind of the reason I have one, you know? I have like a fully fledged website. And it's constantly been evolving. I think these things just do. I don't think you ever arrive at like the website and it's amazing and you never change anything. I think it evolves. But I've had one for 5 years, I think. Actually, it's interesting because I was looking very recently back at my first website and I'd been posting it on like VA forums and stuff. And I recently found an old post and it was from 2014. So at the time of recording this, it was 5 years ago. And if I'm honest with you, it's like, I always feel like it's something you need just because other people say you need a website. Oh, what are you doing if you don't have a website? You know, all this stuff. But I can't actually think of a time where someone has contacted me and been like, hey, I saw your website. It looks great. Shall we work together? It's always been like LinkedIn or referrals, you know, and earlier on sort of the freelancing platforms. I maybe guess it depends on what you're offering. So I always think like, because I mainly write, like I'm a content writer, I make, you know, different kinds of content, explainer videos and blah, blah, blah. But I kind of tie it into like creating stuff for communities that helps them. But I feel like maybe if you're a blogger or you write content, but it's predominantly for like content marketing or just blogs and stuff, maybe a website would be helpful because, you know, you can have your own blog. I've heard a lot of people say this where, you know, if you have your own blog, you can create content that makes you look like the expert. And it's something that I've always been aware of, not necessarily something I've always bought into 100%, but I can maybe see why that would work. You know, I can see the benefits of having a website, but I do think that if you want a website that actually performs well and finds you clients, it's a lot of work to upkeep it, you know, and then if you don't want to be upkeeping it yourself, you're paying someone to do it. So then it's a lot of money. And I guess the way I see it, and it sounds funny because I do have my own website, but all the time that you spend perfecting your own website, you could just basically be spending that time working with clients instead. Like, I always try and think of like how to use your time wisely. And sometimes I don't think a website is all it's cracked up to be, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I definitely know people who are perfectionists with their website and they spend so much time on it and they think they got to have the perfect website in order to get clients. And like you said, it really depends on the industry. I think if you have a lot of packages and services that look well, like photographers, for example, would really benefit from something like that, or graphic designers. But I don't know if you, like you said, I don't know if you actually get clients from a website unless you have some type of lead magnet or a freebie on your website and you're actively on social media or you're doing something to send people to your website. But a website by itself is not going to do anything for you unless you're connecting with people and sharing those links.
I agree. I think that without kind of going into too much technical detail on like how you get your website seen and shared and you get people visiting it, it's like that is a whole marketing strategy that maybe you don't have the money or time for. You know, if you're already finding clients in other ways that aren't costing you a lot of effort or budget, which let's face it, not everyone has like a huge budget to spend on stuff, especially if you're a new freelancer, that's maybe not your first priority. You know, I think that those are the big downsides, really, is just that if you do have a website, you need to kind of start creating content so people find it, because that's really the way that, you know, you improve like your Google search ranking and stuff like that, and having a social media presence ties into it. But if you don't want that and you just want to work with clients and that's how you run your business, then it's not necessary. And when I say this, I am kind of talking about the websites like Squarespace or WordPress, you know, websites that you have a domain for and that are hosted and you basically build from the ground up. I am aware that there are lots of platforms that you can use. Like you said, your about.me page, you know, those are hosted somewhere else. You can still make these kind of portfolios or about pages and stuff like that. You can still have a presence, but without all that kind of hard work that goes along with running like a traditional website. Have you ever kind of, I guess when you said like you've gone to build like your own website, what were your platforms that you were using? I personally use Squarespace.
Yeah, I've used Squarespace in the past. I actually use it now for the Guava Bean website, which will soon be changed to WordPress. But I used Wix for my own personal ones just because it was easy. They have some really nice like portfolio websites and templates already made for freelancers. So you can kind of just like take one of those, drop your images, change the text. It already looks amazing. You just need to customize it a little bit. So I started on those, and I might still one of these days like put out a website, because I think once you get to maybe a certain level of freelancing, like you're in your third or fourth year and you feel ready to kind of be more visible and to put yourself out there and get like a higher quality of clients, then I definitely think it makes sense to put out a website and, you know, really make it your own, put your branding, put your copy on it. That's what I love about your website. Like, it feels very you. You get a sense of you in the copy. It's fun. I like it a lot. I think it's super smart.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you think so, because I always feel like that's a big thing, that if you're going to have a website, it's not generic. Like, I see so many websites that I feel like, and it's no disrespect to anybody, but I feel like are just there just for the sake of having a website. I feel like if you're going to have a website, it has to have a purpose. Like you said, I think, you know, if you're going to invest in a site, you know, is it because you're offering something like a freebie, you know, like a little downloadable, or like, you know, any kind of lead magnet? Or if you're creating like a hub of content that you want people to find that is separate maybe to you just offering your freelancing services. I know a lot of people who do this. For example, one of my favorites is Elna Kane. She's a writer, but her main website is not focused on the fact she's a freelancer. She's helping other freelancers become writers. But then, you know, because she's such an expert in her industry, she does find clients, but it's sort of passive in a way. Does that make sense? It's like, it's not just a static website, but it's ever changing. And I think if you want to do that, then that's when a website can be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to have a purpose. You know, it can't just be a website for the sake of a website. It either has to tell the client who you are and what you do and showcase all your packages, or it has to show your personality and your previous work examples and your experience, you know, or it brings clients into your email list and it gets them reading your emails and engaging in your communities, whatever it is. I don't think you have to have anything, but if you are going to have a website, what we're saying here is that it's actually a serious business and it takes a lot of time and it's going to cost you money for sure. So don't go for it unless you feel like you absolutely need it in order to get clients.
I agree. It's a tough one, I guess, for like a new freelancer, because you read everywhere, you know, all the podcasts, I guess, you know, like we're doing right here. But I mean, there's so many articles and videos and stuff telling you conflicting information, or that you should have a website. It's so important. But I guess it depends on what your goals are for your freelancing business. There isn't just one set answer, is there? You can still be a serious freelancer with a successful business, you know, without having the best website you've ever seen. It just depends where you find your clients. And if you find that you are getting referrals, like I know, Claire, this is, you know, how you find your clients is mainly through referrals. If that works for you, why change it? There might not be any need to. You know, I think it is a really important part of just running not just a website, but obviously your business is figuring out what you actually want from it. And if you feel like your website is going to just take up way too much time and you'd rather just like find your clients through social media or LinkedIn or referrals, you know, use your time that way rather than wasting it on a website which your heart isn't in, or that you don't have the budget or the time to be spending on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think it's really important to have some kind of link, you know. It doesn't have to be a website link, but I find it important when I'm reading through applications and stuff that I like to see people who include a link to see more. But that could be a link to your Instagram profile if you're a photographer. You know, you don't have to have a website. It could be a link to your LinkedIn page, or a link to your About Me page, or a link to your Facebook business page. You know, you can do a lot from a Facebook business page. You can put your services on there. You can fill out the About Me section. You can put pictures and examples of work. I think that, yeah, there's so many alternatives to websites that are free that I wouldn't even go there unless you think that you can actually make money from your website.
Yeah, I love your point about, you know, the fact that you don't actually have to have a website. There's so many other ways to do it. You know, social media is a big one. And, you know, for example, if you're like a photographer, you know, is it going to be easier to have a website that you have to put loads of work into? Or are you going to showcase your best work on Instagram? You can even like tag people who you've worked with and almost have that natural social proof that way, which is a lot harder to do when you have a website. I think that's like a big part of it, is like when you go on a website, you go, should I actually work with this person? Can I trust them? And who else have they worked with? What was their experience like? And that's made so much easier when it is social media, because it's all linked directly there. You're not having to like ask people for testimonials and then like design it in a way that looks perfect and, you know, make people lead through to different pages to find them and that kind of thing. It can be a lot more natural to do it like the way you just said, like Facebook or Instagram or something like that. Now, I know that Ashley asks, what platforms can you use to have your own website? Now, you've mentioned that you use LinkedIn and your About Me page, but I'm wondering if there's any others that you could maybe try for free that gives you that kind of website experience, I suppose, but without having to fork out loads of money on like a custom domain and hosting and getting it designed and that kind of thing. I do know of a few, and personally, because I write, that's my main thing, that having a portfolio is often quite easy to do. So I'm going to have a look at maybe exploring some of those portfolio sites. So I know these probably aren't for everybody, but these can be super helpful. And they tend to be sites like, I think actually, because you mentioned Wix, didn't you? I think, do they still offer a free option? Because I'm pretty sure they used to.
Yeah, they do. They do have a free plan. They just have Wix ads at the top. It's not a big ad. It just says like this website is powered by Wix. You have an ad at the top, but it does give you that website experience and you can run it and get people to visit it.
That's really cool. I like that idea of like still feeling like you have your own brand, but not paying for it, because if it's not something you want to do, it could be a big waste of money if you're starting out and you're on a shoestring budget and things like that. I also know that WordPress obviously do their free version as well, which sounds very similar. It's like it has ads on it, but you can still make website pages and posts and stuff if you want to. There are things like clippings.me. So that's a portfolio site which is free and it's really nice. If you're like a writer or, like a journalist and you're more of like creating that kind of content, it's really easy to use, but it looks like really clean. It's got like such a nice interface and it is completely free. So that kind of thing can be really good if you're maybe sending pitches out and you want to include some examples. If you send someone to just one link, then it just makes it look a little bit more polished and professional if you don't want to fork out for a kind of a full website. I know Portfolio Box is another one which is free as well. That's more for like designers and photographers and that kind of thing. So if you didn't want to use social media like Instagram and stuff like that to share your work, then Portfolio Box is pretty good too.
Yeah, you could also, like if you're in video, you could use YouTube, like have a YouTube channel, do things that way. I was just thinking about the last time I hired someone, and I recently hired someone through their website, but it was a website designer. And so I saw their website and I was like, oh, I like the design of your website. And that's how
that always helps, yeah.
Yeah. So it is like on the plus side of having websites, like if you do it right, it definitely can convince people to work with you. I've seen websites that are beautifully written and really well thought out. And a good website is very impressive. I would say that.
Exactly. I think it's like like I said earlier about the content writer having their own blog. It's kind of the same thing. It's like actual proof, isn't it? Like, so if you're a website designer and you have your own website, I mean, the proof is right there, isn't it, of your skill? So yeah, it can help. I mean, like we keep saying, it sort of depends on the kind of work you do and really what you want from your business. To answer Ashley's question, I don't think you need to have a website. I have one, you don't have one. There are lots of people in the sandbox who maybe do and don't, and we're all successful in our own rights. So I think if you want to try it, then maybe you could try one of those free options that we talked about, or, depending on the type of work you do, you could maybe have social media presence, which you spend more time on and you're building that up, because you can still have like your own branding and stuff on there to a certain extent. I guess try it and see what you think. I think a lot of it maybe comes down to confidence as well, like it is taking a plunge having a website out there. It does feel like you're then exposed to potential clients who may contact you, so it can be a little bit daunting, I suppose.
Yeah, and you mentioned branding, and I didn't even remember that, but that's true. Like if you're gonna have a website, you're gonna need to figure out what your brand is. What are you gonna call yourself? What's your logo? What's your domain name? Like there's actually a lot of other little decisions that come into creating your website. You're gonna need photos for it. You're gonna need to write a lot of text for it. It actually becomes a much bigger job than you'd imagine. So I would say wait until you feel ready to create a website, or just try out one for free on one of these like free sites like Wix. It doesn't cost you anything. Set up a little website, see if you enjoy it, and just do a little trial run. What does it hurt?
That's solid advice. Don't be like me, because I have spent so much money on different domain names, different hosting, designing websites that I then hate. So don't do that. Do what Claire says, because that's much more responsible advice.
Well, I think anyone can make it work. I like seeing people with websites too. I often think that I'm just a little bit lazy and I just need to go ahead and put it up. But at the same time, I'm like, but I don't really need it. So
yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. I think another one piece of advice I will give to anybody, and if you are actually wanting to do your own website and it's like something you really have in your head that you're like, I really want to do this, just try, I mean, look at other people in your industry and like your niche to get ideas of what people are doing, but don't copy people, because that is when your website is not going to get that many, you know, views. It's not going to be effective. People aren't going to want to contact you if they've seen 20 other websites with people saying exactly what you say. I think it can be a tricky thing when you put yourself out there. We suddenly like put on this business face that isn't us, and you become inauthentic and it's really formal. And so just practice on writing how you speak, because then you come out of it and then people are hiring you and not just some faceless kind of freelancer that anybody could be, you know. I think that is a huge part of it. If you're going to invest time, then please and also remember, like, it's okay to tweak stuff. I'm still tweaking stuff. I'm going to be like revamping my website, even though I've just been sitting here saying that I don't need one. I still want to do that. That's like a personal experiment for me. But it's like, don't be afraid of like tweaking stuff and going back to it. It probably will never be finished. And that's okay. I think you just have to be okay with that. If it's something you want to do, then just be okay with the fact that it's probably going to evolve. But also, at the same time, try not to be a perfectionist, if that makes sense. Because then if you're spending too much time on it, then you could just be spending that time more wisely and being more productive and working with clients instead.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's really good. And I know what you mean about constantly tweaking it, because I do have, the website for Guava Bean. And I think we're on like our 5th version now. We're going to launch the 6th version in a couple months. It's a never-ending process. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
It is, but I think that's okay. Do you ever feel like when you create something, like you'll put something on the website and you'll be like, I love this. I cannot believe I haven't done this before. But then you wake up the next day and you're like, why did I do this? Like, this could be so much better. I do that all the time. And it is okay to have that, I think, but just try to just limit yourself to, because it is just a website at the end of the day. It is just a website. Most people who go to it are not going to notice these tiny little details. So just try and, if you're going to do it, like, it's okay to change it, but just don't spend your whole day doing it every day, because then you'll get no work done,
I do definitely know those moments, though, when you get the website right and it looks beautiful and you're like, oh my God, it's perfect. I sometimes, like, on my phone, I will go to, not my website because I don't have one, but like the Guava Bean website or my mom's business. I made a website for her company. So I would just go to those websites and like scroll and see how they look on mobile. And sometimes it's incredible to see like something that you've worked hard on and it's actually out there. It's a really good feeling when you get it right and you're really proud of what you're putting out there. So I definitely encourage everybody to try websites. Like, if I didn't try it, I wouldn't know that I didn't need it. So I think everybody should give it a crack and see how it goes, and then make that decision, like, does this website help me, or is it, like you said, just taking up a lot of time for no, like, return?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah. I agree with you. I think that give it a go. I think there's, upsides and downsides, but it's hard to give like one piece of advice, isn't it? Because everyone's different. Everyone's, niche is different, the kind of work they do, what they want out of their business. And I think that's just important to kind of work out. And I think in that, I think your freelancing business will evolve, and obviously your website will have to evolve with it. So just bear that in mind as well, that it's never going to be finished. It's always going to be something that you have to change if, you change up packages or what you offer or the kind of clients you cater to. So I think once you've got it and you decide you have a website, just to bear in mind, it's like, like when you adopt a dog, it's it's like that ongoing commitment, it's not just once, it's forever. So that sounds quite scary, doesn't it? I don't mean it in a scary way, but I mean, like, once you've got it up, it will, gradually just change with you, I think.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. it's not something that's just one and done. You will constantly, even if you don't have to work on it, you'll still be paying monthly or annual fees to keep it running unless you take the free version.
We hope this episode has helped you figure out what to do next. Now it's your turn, Guava Bees. Have you got a burning question that only Guava Bean can help answer? Submit your question in the sandbox or on the website, and we could be answering yours in the next episode. That's all from us. To all creatives, rebels, and digital nomads, keep working online and living free.
Want to know more about the Freelancer Sandbox? Visit guavabean.com/sandbox to start your free trial now.